Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome back to the Book It, the Wrestling Promoter card game video tutorial series. My name is Paul Laporte, and we are in the booking phase of the first turn of the game. If you have watched our previous videos, you will have seen us choose our promotion, sign our venue, sign the wrestlers that we wanted for our promotion, as well as developing one of our local wrestlers, and now we are actually going to be booking our card. We have 10 wrestlers here, 6 locals, and 4 hardcore wrestlers for our hardcore promotion, and we are going to be now actually laying out the matches that we are going to be advertising for our show. So you have your deck of wrestlers here, which is referred to as your roster. The first thing you have to do is go ahead and shuffle that up. In Tabletop Simulator, that's a little bit easier, but if you have the print version, I think you guys know how to shuffle together a deck of cards. So just shuffle those up and then draw your starting hand, and your starting hand is going to be 6 cards. So we have 6 wrestlers here, and these are going to be the wrestlers that will kind of make up our initial choices for our starting matches. So as you can see here, we have 4 local wrestlers, our 4 jobbers, our crappy, no money making, barely can wrestle jobbers here. And then we have 2 independent wrestlers in Genocide and Bud Drinker. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be determining our first match. Now, for the purposes of booking, there isn't really any sort of order that the show has to go in. You can book your quote-unquote main event first or your opening match. Really, that's just kind of for storytelling and role-playing purposes. The order of the matches on your card don't really matter. And as you're going to see in a moment, you're going to want to book matches in certain orders because they're going to have extra benefits for you. So taking a look at Bud Drinker and Genocide, this is going to be our first match that we're going to book. This is certainly probably going to consist of our main event. So if we just take these two and kind of lay them out on the table, and that's going to represent our first match. Now, the reason that we want this to be our first match is because if you refer back to the first video we did on the anatomy of wrestlers and matches, this is a perfect match. These two have the same star power, they have the same work rate, and they have the same style. Now, star power and work rate we're going to talk about in the later phases, but the one we're concerned about right now is the fact that these two have the same style, which means that they are familiar. And because they are familiar, we have these 4 jobbers now to choose from for our next match. But because we've booked this match and these two are familiar with each other, we are going to get to draw additional cards to determine how we book the rest of our show. Now, when wrestlers have the same style, then the promoter will draw 2 additional cards to choose from for their next match. So we would have these 4 jobbers and then 2 more cards to choose from under normal circumstances. However, if the 2 wrestlers have the same style as the promotion, so these 2 wrestlers are hardcore wrestlers in a hardcore promotion. So because they have the same style as the promotion, instead of drawing 2 cards into our hand, we're going to draw 4 cards into our hand in addition to the 4 we already have. There is no limit on your hand size. It can be as big as the matches you book allow it to be. And in the case of booking this as our first match, we are now going to have the remaining 4 cards in our roster in our hand. So now we can lay out the rest of the show exactly how we want. So we have, this is our first match, and then we have these jobbers and these 2 hardcore wrestlers, Double M and Jack Love. So let's just go ahead and take a look and decide how we want to set our next match up. Now, we could put the 2 hardcore wrestlers together, but because they don't have any matching stat numbers, and because we don't have any more cards to draw, we really don't need to. Also, something to consider is that Double M has a 2 work rate, which will turn into a 3 with hardcore, and Jack Love has a 3 work rate, which is going to turn into 4 because they're both hardcore wrestlers in a hardcore promotion. And that means that their work rate is going to total up to an odd number. Now, if you'll refer back to the first video in which we discussed the anatomy of a match, you will know that to determine the quality of a match, you take the average of the work rate of the 2 wrestlers. However, that average is rounded down. So if you have 2 wrestlers who have a work rates that total up to an odd number, you're going to actually lose a little bit of quality on that match because that odd number is going to be rounded down. So for the sake of that, we're actually going to try and get these guys into matches that are going to add up to even numbers. So when deciding the next match we want to have, Double M has a work rate of 2, which is going to turn into a work rate of 3 thanks to the hardcore promotion. We're going to go ahead and put him in a match with a jobber because that jobber has a work rate of 1. So that's going to total up to a work rate of 4, which will average out to a 2 quality match. Not a great match, but it is an even numbered match, so we're kind of getting the most we can out of our wrestlers. Now, taking a look at Jack Love has a 3 work rate, which is going to turn into a 4 because he's in a hardcore promotion. He gets a +1 to his work rate. We're going to put him in a match with a journeyman, so their work rate is going to total up to 6 divided by 2, so they're going to have a 3 quality match, which we'll, again, discuss a little bit later on. And then for the remainder of these matches, we just have a few jobbers to choose from, so we're just gonna have a couple scrub matches in our first show. Again, we're a new promotion. We are focusing on the young talent that makes up the heart and soul. I don't know, you can make up whatever excuses you want. These are the guys we can afford because they're free. They just show up and put on crappy matches, but they fill out the card. So this is what the card's going to look like. We're going to have Genocide versus Bud Drinker, Jack Love versus Journeyman, Double M versus Jobber, and then these two jobbers against each other. And it is, again, worth reiterating that the bonuses that we were talking about, the synergy bonuses with Genocide and Bud Drinker, where they have the same star power, the same work rate, when we talked in the first video about getting bonuses from those, again, local wrestlers do not get those bonuses. Also, if two wrestlers, even if they're independent wrestlers, if their same number is 0, then they do not get any sort of bonus as well. It's only for stats of a 1 or higher. But we'll be talking about that in a little bit later on. This is our card. These are our 5 matches. Again, Genocide, Bud Drinker, Double M and a Jobber, Jack Love and a Journeyman, and then these 2 jobber matches. And this is what comprises an entire card. You have to have 5 matches on your card to make a full card for that turn. If for some reason, whether it's because of dirt sheet cards that were played on you, or you just didn't have enough money to sign enough wrestlers, if you cannot put on 5 matches, each featuring 2 wrestlers for your show, then you are going to take a penalty to your reputation. So if you have only 4 matches on your card, you're going to take a -1 penalty to your reputation. And you're going to take a -1 penalty to your reputation for each amount of matches under 5 that you have. So for 4, again, you're getting a -1 to your reputation. If for some reason you only have 3 matches on your card, then you'll take a -2 to your reputation. Realistically, you're probably never going to have fewer than that on your show, but if you did, then you would take cumulative -1 penalties to your reputation. So now that we have the entire card laid out, let's go ahead and move on to making our money in the ticket sales phase.